So the helicopter went down. That was it. Right to the edge of this ice floe. I tossed the raft over there, that little case. The ice floe turned out to be about this high. I grabbed my equipment and tried to pull myself up on it. I'm Jake Morrison, a private pilot. I fly helicopters. I had this attempt at a world record going, a high-speed circumnavigation flight, and then the accident happened. The record I was trying to set back then was for the fastest around-the-world flight in the smallest, lightest helicopter possible. Every morning, until about noon, I'd fly for maybe 6 hours. Then I'd refuel, grab lunch, and fly another 5 to 6 hours. Everything was going toward completion. I'd flown 85% of the route. 43 days were behind me, probably another 9 or 10 days ahead, a week minimum. This was the crossing over the Bering Strait. To do that, I had to reach the narrowest point in the strait, the Bering Strait that separates Alaska from Russia. And from there, it's on through the Aleutians, then Japan, across Asia, and eventually a straight shot to Seattle. So here we have Alaska, and this is the northeastern part of the Russian Far East, their territory. I had to get from here to there, a total of 520 miles. The town I flew out from to cross the strait was Nome, and there I was able to rent emergency survival gear, an inflatable raft and a survival suit, like the kind divers use. The suit was one piece. The gloves were attached. They didn't come off. So you climb into this thing, and you got these three-fingered mitts like this. And in that, you can't control anything at all. So obviously I peeled it down to my waist, tied it off right here, knowing that if the worst happened, I'd somehow have to scramble to put it on fully, all that. Well, that would be later, once things actually went south. So from Nome, I needed to fly 520 miles. I waited 2 days there for weather. On the third day I took off, flew about halfway. That's 130 miles over land, then 130 miles over open water, right in the middle. 260 miles ahead of me, 260 behind. I was feeling pretty confident. The sun was even warming things up a bit. Everything was fine. And then suddenly, in one instant, I realized there was a sharp strike to the tail rotor. The helicopter went into a bank. The heading was lost. What was left? Descending. I started going down. It's such a psychologically tough moment because you keep thinking any second now it'll all stabilize. But no, it keeps getting worse and worse, and you need to accept that you're going to ditch in the water. I couldn't see any water. Obviously, I was above the cloud layer, so what was below me was unclear. I knew it was something like water, but whether it was ice-covered or open, whether there were icebergs or what, I had no idea. Couldn't see a thing. I went into auto-rotation, punched through the clouds. The bottom edge was around 250 feet. Came out, black water below me, and white, sparse, white flows, little ice chunks. Landing on those in auto-rotation mode, well, it's practically impossible. Next thing, everything ended up in the water. I was submerged. The cockpit is about as wide as I'm sitting, 2 feet on each side. Water started filling it instantly. First, I had to stop the rotor. I ditched, with the blades still spinning. I tilted the body to the left so it would tip over and the blades would break on the water. I had to stop that spinning. Then I had to tilt it back the other way to try to restore some buoyancy with the float. Fought with that for a bit, but the water was already rising. The main thought, of course, was that I needed to somehow send a distress signal. I had 2 trackers. They transmit coordinates every 2, 5, or 10 minutes, however you set them. My main concern was making sure the coordinates of my ditching point got transmitted. because everything that followed depended on that. And then I had my satellite phone, which is the ideal rescue tool. You can establish two-way communication via satellite phone from anywhere in the world, relay your coordinates, and so on. That phone was mounted nicely on a little stand up front, and when I hit the water, there was no impact per se, but all these fluctuations, all this junk in the cockpit started falling on me, this and that. The whole mess knocked my satellite phone loose, and it got lost somewhere in the water. And I realized I could either search for it, I had time, or grab the raft, which was in this case under my feet, and get out with it. When I got out, the helicopter hadn't fully sunk yet. There was still an air pocket, like a bubble, and I had a chance to dive back in. I dove, grabbed the raft. Then imagine this. 5 minutes ago, everything was fine, of course. Now you're in the middle of nowhere. I knew where I was, in freezing water, practically naked, holding this raft, the helicopter, everything gone. Game over. But in your brain, you know there are ice floes somewhere nearby. In theory, you can swim to them. Otherwise, that's it. I'm not the strongest swimmer. I can swim like anyone else, but not exceptionally. I didn't know how many minutes I had left before losing consciousness. So the helicopter sank. That was it. Me with this raft. Basically, I swam to this ice floe through the case up there. The floe turned out to be about this high. I couldn't just climb up on it. I swam around it, found a spot a bit lower, grabbed on and tried to pull myself up, scraped and clawed. There was ice here. I'm pulling. My suit's full of water. I had to haul all that up with me. When you want to live, you'll contort yourself however you need to. I pulled up, crawled onto the floe. Cold, water everywhere. I peeled off the suit, dumped out the water, put it back on, zipped up. Still cold, wet, everything. I'm shaking all over, teeth chattering. I decided to activate the raft there on the ice to see what I had. It inflated perfectly, nice and yellow. Inside I found a little bundle with the main thing, 3 flares. These flares burn for about 30 seconds each with a bright light. I've used them before. So I lay down under the raft, curled up, lying on the ice like a fish on a cutting board. Covered myself with the raft to block the wind just to conserve a little warmth. I'm lying there, shivering, thinking about what to do. The coordinates got sent out, let's say, and some rescue operation supposedly begins. My friends in Seattle were tracking the flight, and people in the States were following along pretty closely. I figured, okay, that's reasonably good. Later it turned out the fog was so thick you couldn't see 500 feet, and above, obviously, nothing visible. So when getting ahead of myself, when the first and only aircraft showed up 5 hours later, it flew right over my coordinates, circled overhead for an hour. It's coming toward me. I stand up like a Boy Scout, waving. The sound's getting closer and closer. Right. Overhead, I activate the flare, stand up, but it flies past and I don't see it. Theoretically, I don't see it at all. It must have passed a mile or 2 away. But in that fog, you lose visibility at 500 feet. I understood everything in that first minute of my interaction with that plane, because I realized my chances had just gone from good to very bad. The most interesting thing happened 4 hours later, an hour before the plane showed up, 4 hours after the crash. I'm lying in this fetal position. Suddenly I hear footsteps. I'm completely confused. Who could be walking on my ice floe? This is my ice floe. Who could be here, especially since it's surrounded by water? Nobody could possibly. Footsteps. The actual crunch of steps. I peek out from under the raft and see right here about 5 feet from me, a white head, black nose, and so on. Sniffing me. What's this smell? A polar bear. I didn't wonder how it got there or get upset. Why are you even here? None of that. It was just hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. It's well known that bears find people stranded in the Arctic before rescuers almost always, and there's zero chance. The bear always eats you and fast. Does a thorough job. Nothing left. So that was pretty much the end. But you've got to fight somehow, right? I chose an aggressive strategy. I jumped up with whatever strength I had and literally lunged at it. I noticed it recoiled and kind of ran off at an angle. I kept up the momentum, pure instinct, but I wanted to punch it in the rear end. It was so close I don't remember if I actually connected or not. We both ran to the edge of the floe. It sort of jumped across to another ice chunk, one paw in the water, the other in the water, and onto the next floe. I couldn't do that. I stopped at the edge, and I remembered that when facing regular brown bears, if you stand tall with your arms raised, they perceive your height, including your arms. And if that's taller than the bear itself, it's afraid. Whoever's taller than the bear is stronger. So I stood there with my arms up, growling, yelling at it. It stopped, turned around slowly, and we just looked at each other for a bit, maybe 30 feet between us. Then I thought, well, that's it. The element of surprise is gone now. It knows what I am. I'm yelling, standing there yelling at it, and then, interestingly, it sits down on its haunches, sits down, paws folded, tilted its head a bit, looking at me like, okay, go ahead, keep jumping around. I kept yelling. I had no other role. I kept projecting anger, trying to scare it. So I'm thinking, well, now it's definitely over. It's watched a show. Done. It turns around slowly and starts walking away from me. Slowly. Polar bears have these long necks. It's walking, takes a few steps, then whips its head back around and looks at me. What am I doing? I'm standing there yelling until I'm hoarse. It keeps walking. Takes a few more steps. Looks back again. Pauses. And that's how it left into the fog. After about 300 feet, I couldn't see it anymore. Anyway, I sat there like that for an hour. Then the plane came, and I realized it couldn't see me in the fog. And somewhere around midnight, a second bear came. The next day, during daylight, a third bear. I think they were all different bears because the scenario was identical each time. Believe it or not, I was lying under the raft. I had no other position. Each time a bear approached, I scared it, with varying success, and it would run off. In this whole rescue operation, with a bear still wandering around nearby, I was really losing spirit. I realized I wasn't getting out of there. On the second day, I almost didn't care anymore. I knew the bears were circling. Nobody was rescuing me. They didn't see me. We had no contact. So they didn't know where to send any rescue vessels. Zero chance. Just zero. There was a moment when a little pool of water formed in the ice. Melted or seawater, I don't know. I lay down in it, and it actually felt warm. Just warmer than lying on the ice in the wind. I submerged myself in that water and just kind of blissfully settled in. That was probably the final stage, merging with nature. Next would be passing out, and then the bear could just come and not be afraid anymore, because I wouldn't be able to scare it. That's how the entire second day passed. My emotional state was anger. Anger that they weren't rescuing me. There was one more helicopter on the morning of the second day. It showed up, so the operation was working. Those guys were doing their job, but the current had carried me several miles from that original coordinate in the first 24 hours. And this helicopter was searching the grid several miles away. It didn't occur to them there was a current. I stood there with a flare. Second time I used one, I only had 3 total. First one for the plane, second for the helicopter when it got as close as possible. I thought, Maybe they'd see the glow. Nope. It flew off. That was it. Nothing more after that. One plane, one helicopter. I was already half asleep, couldn't fight it anymore, drifting in and out, and then, like I'm hearing something, I hear this sound. I lift my head, peek out, and I see lights. I realize a ship, way out on the horizon. But why can't I see it? I mean, I hadn't seen anything. Nobody had seen me. There was fog. How am I seeing this? Turns out in the last half day, the wind had shifted, south to north, cleared out the fog. I realize if I can see it, then it can see me. And I've got one flare left. This is my chance. I jump up, fully awake now. Activate the flare. Hold it as high as I can. It burns out in 30 seconds. The plastic candle starts melting. I think, let it burn a little more. It's hurting now, burning. Not just the magnesium anymore, the plastic's burning. I'm propping it up. Finally, it burns out completely. I'm waving. Done. Totally burned out. I look, and after a minute or two, I see two lights separate from that main light, green and red. They separate. I realize those are the navigation lights of a helicopter that just took off from the deck, flying toward me. And right then I know, okay, this is it. Really good chance of survival now. It comes over, hovers. They just pull me up without landing. Into the cabin. Done. I'm incredibly relieved. I'm thanking them profusely. Seriously. They're quiet. I'm euphoric. Literally, a minute later, I'm on the deck. This turned out to be the only icebreaker in that area. U.S. Coast Guard. The U.S. CGC Healy. For me, it was like a second birthday, my real rescuers. They were thrilled too because their rescue operations rarely end well. They surrounded me immediately, gave me food right away. I ate everything, amazing food. Some kind of smoked salmon, incredible. I stuffed myself. But of course I shouldn't have done that. Everyone dispersed after. Party was over. I went to sleep, but just as I reached the cabin, I threw up. Totally unplanned. I came today wearing this t-shirt with the logo of that icebreaker, the Healy, U.S. Coast Guard. I got this shirt when they rescued me. They dressed me in a t-shirt and pants. That was the outfit. Yes, people were praying for me. Thousands of people, as it turned out. I found that out later, and it's absolutely true. In Nome, everyone learned about the crash that same day. It was a Saturday. By Saturday evening, everyone there knew. They gathered at their church and prayed. They told me about it later because I went back to Nome and spent another couple of days there. The reunions were incredibly moving. Everyone wanted to take a photo with me, touch me. I believe them. If you meet someone who found common ground with polar bears, that's got to bring some kind of luck. They celebrated my rescue like a victory, like payback for their own who died. They were as happy about my rescue as if I were family. Can you imagine? That was very touching. Then I bought a ticket to Seattle and flew home. In Seattle, my friends met me at the airport. There were a lot of people at SeaTac. Really, I owe my rescue to my friends because the ones who were tracking my flight saw my coordinates and saw that the track stopped. It was clear I was in the water. There was no rescue command center yet. They alerted the Americans. Basically, my friends relayed my coordinates to the rescue center. I didn't set the record. Unfortunately, flew 85% of the route. Everything was fine, but a record has to be honest. Some people told me, just fly from that point onward. But that's not how it works. It has to be in one go. My answers are pretty simple. First of all, don't lose your composure. Don't panic. Second, conserve heat. Try to position yourself to minimize heat loss. Third, think about how to signal for help. When dealing with wildlife like these bears, you have to act according to the situation. But never run away. Never turn your back. Never run. Don't show fear. Don't display it, obviously. What else? Prayer, probably.